We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts. Hello, and welcome to Storied San Francisco, a podcast all about the people and places that make this city unique. I'm your host, Jeff Hunt. This is episode 16 of our 5th season here on the podcast. The location we're featuring this week and next is the San Francisco Women's Building. Located in the Mission for more than 50 years now, the Women's Building has served so many functions. From a safe space and place to get various resources, to a spot for poetry, art, and other artistic gatherings. To share some of the Women's Building's history, as well as to talk about all the programs and areas of engagement they do, we sat down with content specialist slash social media manager Maria Arteaga and Community Engagement Coordinator, Kristen Acosta. Here's part 1 of our chat.
Hi, welcome to the Women's Building. Lovely day to be here. And my name is Maria Arteaga, and I'm the content specialist slash social media manager here at the Women's Building. Okay, well, I think that I don't think I'm from Puebla, Mexico. And I was just like born, raised there, and I lived there until I was 28 years old. Then I moved because I have to start like the PhD in the University of Barcelona. So I lived there for 4 years. Then life took me to Zurich, Switzerland.
Okay.
Beautiful place, but it was not my place.
Yeah.
So at some point I was kind of like wanting just to be in a place with, I don't know, what I can feel more like related.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for my partner came here for work, and I was just walking by the city, and it was just like felt like, you know, the Mission Street that felt like home.
Yeah.
And I saw the people, and I saw like the vibrancy and everything. So I was like, I don't know if it's possible. Maybe I could like move here and just see what happens. And luckily, we were like very fortunate just to come here in March 2019, and I was just walking like randomly on the streets, and I saw this beautiful building. I was like, what is this? Is that Rigoberta Menchú? Is that like Coach Shoutley? And what is happening in this just amazing place? And I saw the side, the Women's Building. And I was like, okay, well, what is the Women's Building? Then I went back to my house and I browsed the internet, and I saw all the work like of the Women's Building, the web page, and I was like, okay. And then at the end, I was like, we're looking for volunteers, like for like our tech program. And I just like sent an email. I say, I'm not like the techiest person, but I'm like, I can manage. And I had an interview. When I came, the first person that I met was like here, Kristen Acosta, and she was so welcoming. And we were downstairs, the community resource room, and I saw all these women just running around and doing like all their jobs, and I was like, oh my God, it's just so powerful. And I felt so energized, and after the interview I just felt very moved, and I just came back to my place like wishing with all my heart just like to be able to volunteer here, and it happened. And I stay here for like 3 months as a tech volunteer. Then I joined in the family unification program for 1 year, and then I moved to development to the current like position that I have, but it's been a pleasure.
Okay. Wow. I have a couple of questions. What was your field of study? You said you went to Europe for PhD, right?
Yes.
Okay. What did you study there?
Anthropology.
Okay. And then, yes, this show is Storied San Francisco, but Barcelona is very much in my heart. And I'm actually going there with my wife this summer. It's going to be hot, but I don't care. My wife has never been. Again, it's just a very special place to me. Can we just quickly talk about your time there? 'Cause,
Of course.
yeah, it's a magic place.
Yeah, actually, it's very funny when I arrived, just like with all like my stuff, and it was hectic. And then I just took a cab and I gave to the driver the address that I had, because I already had an apartment, a shared apartment with other like students, and I gave him the address, and then he just like told me we arrived, and I saw this like amazing Art Deco building.
Yeah.
It looks so posh, and I was like, "Are you sure that is
That's
here?"
me. Yeah, right.
It was my, "Are
Do
you
I
sure?"
belong
Because
here?
I saw like a large chandelier and like the kind of like a marble. I don't know if they were marble, but these beautiful floors and a statue and then the and we're like, "Are you sure that this is the address?" And he was like, "Yeah. This street number 12." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." And I was just on the street, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna ring the bell, and then just like the person who I ride with just came down and was like, welcome me, and I was like, oh, this is a very fancy building.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that kind of speaks to something about Barcelona, that it makes, maybe not everyone, but it makes a lot of people feel special that you're in this place. And you hadn't even really done anything yet. You hadn't eaten, you hadn't walked around, you hadn't met people. You hadn't taken a siesta.
No, I was just like, wow. And then the day after, I just woke up like super early, and then I have to do all the bureaucracy stuff, just to many stuff related with that. And I just was walking in the street, and everything felt so special. Like I didn't remember like neither so much like my family that I left or the city that I left, and it was like, I felt bad because I was like, I don't miss that at all. So.
Right. Barcelona will do that to you, I think. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's enough about Barcelona, because again, this show is not called Storied Barcelona. Let's throw it to you. Can you introduce yourself and let us know your name and your title or role here at the Women's Building?
Yeah. So my name's Kristen Acosta, and my pronouns are she, her, ella.
Thank you, Beth.
And my role here is the Community Engagement Coordinator. So I'm the person who does a lot of our community engagement. So how do we make sure our community is involved in all of our events, and we're really building community, intentional community. And then with that is also a lot of like education and advocacy. So I also do a lot of our advocacy on like a local level, on a state level, and sometimes national level. Oh, so nice. a lot of different things are involved in my role.
Yeah.
So I'm pulled in a lot of directions, but I like it.
City Hall, Sacramento, Washington,
yeah.
Or do you ever get to go to those places?
So far, just City Hall and Sacramento.
Oh, okay. Well,
so one day maybe it'll take me to DC.
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
It would be.
Okay, let's hear a little bit about your story. Your colleague let on that you're like me from Texas. Where about?
So I'm from El Paso, so
Okay.
the frontera, borderland.
Yeah.
So right there with Juarez.
Yes.
I born and raised there and lived there till I was 18. And then I went to school in San Antonio. So
Okay.
So I was in
More
San Antonio.
central.
Where are you from?
Fort Worth.
Okay.
Yeah, so not really close to either.
Leon
but
Bridges.
Again, Texas is Texas. It's
Yeah.
very big. Can I ask you a quick question about El
Yes.
Paso? So Padme and Lakshmi's show, Taste of the Nation, she went to El Paso, and I had no idea there's this thing known as the El Paso burrito.
Oh,
And of course, living in San Francisco, you're like, what?
Is it just that it's big? I have no idea, actually.
It's not. I think Mission burritos are known as like the super big ones. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
And San Diego.
I feel like a bad El Pasoan. I mean,
Not at
most
all,
people
no.
talk about Chico's Tacos when they think about El Paso.
Okay.
It's like tacos dorados, and then it's like tomato sauce and yellow cheese.
Oh, okay. That sounds intense.
It's intense.
Yeah.
But they are actually really good. But it's like an El Paso thing.
Okay. Well, at the very least, this was a plug for Padma Lakshmi's show, which I think is coming back for a second season. It's really good. Anyway, okay, so grew up in El Paso, like undergrad in San Antonio? UT San Antonio? Or okay.
UT San Antonio.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then
I
what?
was there for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
After I graduated, I did like a lot of writing and mostly like retail work throughout my like work in college. And
that's feasible in Texas, by the way. I went to UT Austin and I worked at a cafe and paid my own way.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah. All my friends went to, like my best friends went to UT Austin. And I ended up staying at UT San Antonio because I liked it. And then I got a job from a friend, that's how jobs usually happen.
Yeah.
And it was a job like as a customer service rep for a camera company, so a robotic camera company.
Okay.
And I worked there for 4 years and my first job out of college. And then they got an investor here in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley. So it wasn't one of those big startup companies, but obviously still problematic in the sense of, yes, it's also leading to the gentrification here in San Francisco.
Displacement.
So we moved here. I moved here with my partner in 2000.
It's okay.
Can't even remember now. It was 5 years ago.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
Also, pandemic.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, my sense of time since pandemic has changed. Not 5 years ago. Actually, 7 years ago.
7. Okay.
I've been here for 5 years, but 7 years ago, and I've been in the Mission and with the Women's Building for 5 years.
Had you visited San Francisco at all before you decided to move?
No.
Okay,
so
interesting.
I had never visited San Francisco. They were like, we're going to pay for you to move.
That helps.
And I was like, yes, take me over there.
Yeah, that helps. Totally.
And yeah, I mean, I think it was actually really hard for me when I first moved to San Francisco because, I mean, Texas gets a lot of crap, but Texas also is very communal, like very neighbory. You meet your neighbors, you say hi to people. Then I moved to San Francisco and it was really hard. And maybe it was a part of San Francisco and it was hard for me to build community, to get to know my neighbors. And that's when I started visiting the Mission District. And that's how I fell in love with the Mission District, similar to Maria. Like you feel more at home. You get to know your neighbors talk to you, you say hi, you say have a good day. And
you make eye contact.
You make eye contact.
First.
Exactly.
Eye contact. Yeah.
But where I was, and not to give Alamo Square crap, but I didn't have that, like where the Painted Ladies are.
Yeah.
I was on Divisadero. It was a really different vibe over there.
It's literally colder.
Yeah,
so
cold.
I live even more north and west than that, and I used to live over here for many years on 20th Street, and so it's like, when I make the travel like I did today, when I come over here, I'm always like taking off layers and just like breathing the air and saying hello to people and like it's just
I love it. It's a completely different feeling.
Vibe.
Yeah.
So you moved here sight unseen, and then to San Francisco. How did you come to
the
be part of the
Women's Building?
Building?
Like I said, I kind of just I was looking for community, looking for like how to get involved, and I was volunteering with different organizations. So I like volunteered with Glide, I volunteered with St. Anthony's, and then I found the Women's Building. I was just walking, similar to Maria. I passed by it and I was like, wow, these murals, and I was just taken in and in awe of the murals, and I also saw it was the Women's Building, El Edificio de Mujeres, and I was like, what is this? So instead of going,
building.
I was amazed. Yeah. So and I didn't walk in. I was like, oh, I don't know if it's like a community space. And then I just got online and I was like, okay, what is this? And then similar to Maria, I went to the volunteer page and I was like, they're looking for volunteers. So I applied to be a volunteer, and I was so nervous. I was like, what if they don't, like, what if I don't get the volunteer position? And it was the admin to the executive director at the time, which was Teresa Mejia, who's amazing. And I had an interview. I was so nervous, and I came in and I was like, this is to volunteer. This is amazing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're nervous for a volunteer interview.
I was so nervous. But
it just speaks to probably how badly you wanted it, right? Yeah.
And it was amazing though. There's so many people in here, and it really is like community, a community center, like where people are able to come, whoever you are, you come to this building and you find that. And it was a great interview. And then that same interview, like I met also the ED, Teresa Mejia, which also shows just like how open we are.
Right.
And, you know, you just walk in, you come as you are, and you get to meet people and make those connections. So it was awesome. And since then I started volunteering, and at the time, the job that I was at was like kind of not doing well. So I started finding like other jobs, and I got into freelancing. So I started like doing writing for other like companies, and also like doing like fashion writing and things like that, and random jobs. And so I was doing that, and then the receptionist position opened up. So I was like, I could do this and be a receptionist
Is
and
that
be
like
here.
right down
here.
when you walk in, the person I talked to?
Yeah,
Okay,
so the receptionist of the women's building. And I ended up applying, and I got the position. And I was doing both. And then finally, I think it was 3 or 4 months went by, and then I got another position opened, and I applied for that one. And it was for program support and the food pantry coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah, and then since then, my position has like changed. Also, like responding to what like community needs are. A lot of that happened during COVID.
I was gonna say.
And it was like response, like what is the community in need of, and a lot of it was, you know, education, like know your rights, what's going on. Like a lot of our folks, they are in service industry or care work, and they either lost their jobs or they were getting even more exploited than they were before.
Right.
So it was like making sure we were providing accessible information for everyone so that they are empowered to make their own decisions. So we were doing a lot of like know your rights workshops with different amazing organizations like Trabajadores Unidos, and making those connections. So that's a lot of my position too, is making connections to people who we're stronger together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I think now might be a good time to turn to the history of the place. I do want to mention, I don't know that it's the number one thing that is mentioned in the 5 and almost 6 years that we've been doing this show, but it comes up a lot. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We did an episode on Good Vibrations a couple months ago. We happened to be recording at the Polk Street location because that's where the Antique Vibrator Museum is, and we thought that would be cool, and I think it was. But anyway, going back to their roots, I think it was on 18th Street, and my guest was like, it was right by the women's building, which made a whole lot of sense. So that was one instance. And then I don't know if this name is going to mean anything to you, but a couple seasons ago, we met this incredible woman. We ended up recording on her birthday. She didn't tell me that until I was there. But I was like, really? You wanted to do this on your birthday? Her name is Mary Midget. She goes by Midget. She lives over in Bernal, and she turned 85 that day, and this was 3 years ago, so she's probably like in her late 80s now, but you would never know it. She's I guess she considers herself a writer and educator, and she's just like unstoppable force of nature. And she told me that she, back in this early 70s, I believe is when the building opened, is that correct? So that she was like part of a group of women that helped open this place. So I just wanted to mention those things because they've been on the show before. But I will throw it over to you, Maria, please, to share the story of the history of the women's building.
Well, it's totally true that what you say, and actually it's like kind of sad, that thing, that because like there are many like random articles on the internet, one good thesis about the women's building, but this like organization is being here in the Bay Area for like more than 50 years. So when we were speaking about the murals, because like I just like hate when people like came here, what is this building about? That is now my mission, and I want to like show everyone what the women's building is inside, and what kind of work we do here, because we are here, we've been here for a long time, and we do like amazing stuff with this amazing group of women and with the communities. So the Women's Building is more than these beautiful murals, and actually our formal name is the San Francisco Women's Centers, which was like a group of women who decided they just want to tackle like the woman issues in the early 70s. There is an agreement about like who were those group of women. There are several stories depending who's telling the story. So
Right. Well, I'll just go on record as believing my friend Midget that,
no,
that
of
she
course,
was part
but I
of
mean,
it.
they are like kind of circulating different versions of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the nice part too, though. Is like everybody. There was a lot of people involved, and it's like it doesn't matter who it was. It's like I'm sure she did contribute, and that is important. It doesn't lessen it. I think it's like everybody had a special part. They don't have to be named.
We'll be suspicious of those who said, "Oh yeah, I started it by myself."
Exactly.
It's like, no, it takes a bunch of people to do anything significant.
Yeah, exactly, because it was just a group of different women coming from different parts, and then just create the San Francisco Women's Centers, and they were just like having a different location, which it was not here, but by the 1975, like the San Francisco Women's Center, with another like working groups of women, like they decide just to do a conference like about domestic violence against women, partnering with SF State, and SF State is gonna be like the sponsor, and it's gonna be like the venue at that time.
SF State, by the way, is the number one thing that's referenced on this show in 6 years.
Wow.
And I went there as well. It comes up all the time.
So the discussion was who is going to be allowed if it's going to be a conference about violence against women, and they want to involve women who were just experiencing that problems at that time. So at the moment, they just decided it will be only women conference, and because of that, SF State has just to like say no to the sponsorship, and also just they cancel the venue. So that was a very harsh experience, and they just decide that they don't want to face that again. They want to just do whatever they want and allow whoever they want, and they just start just to browsing different properties and just decide that they want to own their building.
Right.
But the time they were just renting here, and it was a club downstairs, and it was
Dover Club, right?
Club,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's another. It hasn't been on the podcast, but I just happened to hear about that at one point early in my time here.
And I think by 1975, or after that, they just decide to buy the building, and then the bar has to go, and then it just when kind of like the Women's Building as like we know it is just was born.
Yeah.
Like, that idea.
So the building did already exist. Okay. Do you know anything about like when was it built and what other kinds of things was it before?
It was a German athletic club, and it was the daughters of
The Sons of Norway.
the Sons of Norway.
Sons of Norway. That's German? Or we don't know what that is.
A very formal article they say that says the states first that it was German athletic club, and then it was like Elsa.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then of course it was Club Dover. Or Dover Club.
Yeah.
Dover Club. And then
I think it was at the same time because I mean
they
were sharing
well.
the space also with the San Francisco Women's Centers, but they were on different floors.
That's definitely that checks with what I've heard, for sure.
Yeah, but it seems like they were just like looking just for a space, like just only for themselves, is when they decide just to gather the resources and buy this place.
I love it. And that's like, so nearly 50 years ago, that, and it's before terms like agency were, but that's a community taking charge and taking control for themselves.
Yeah, actually, the
love
idea always of the Women's Building and the San Francisco Women's Centers as a organization was to be collective and inclusive, and that's the thing that also I always enjoy to highlight, or why I feel very connected, because I think that they were the original intersectional feminists.
Right.
Because it was a very heterogeneous group of women with different backgrounds and different stories, and they also in the document that they where they establish the way that they want to function, they state that they want to just engage with all women's struggles, no matter race or culture or economic background.
Yeah, and that's another word I feel like that wasn't popular or well known back then, intersectionality.
Yeah, but
it speaks to that they did it without it being sort of a trend. I don't know what to call it, but it wasn't known. They just did it because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, because also they knew that they were different groups of women, different kind of women, that they weren't all the same. So they have to be inclusive, and they have just to try to engage with all of them.
Mm-hmm. So can you speak to what sorts of programs or activities or anything that was happening once now this women's center group got their own place?
One of the things that also found out, it was the second year I was here browsing all the archives, is that, for example, it was the first Black lesbian conference in the United States held here.
I think my friend Midget spoke to that and was part of it.
In October in 1980s.
Okay.
And it was here Angela Davis and Audre Lorde and many, many, many Black lesbian feminist women were here. And it was amazing. The first conference, and it was in this space, in the auditorium of the Women's Building, and they have childcare services, and they have a room just to discuss women's liberation and women's power, and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. But also since the beginning, many of the founders, they were they identify as lesbians. That many of the programs and services that they at the time were supported by the San Francisco Women's Center or the Women's Building were also for the LGBT community. For example, it was the Youth Recreation and Information Center. It was the Lesbian and Bisexual Women, Lesbian for the Visual Arts. But also they just realized that it was the Latinx community here in the Mission, and they want to engage with that as well, so just try to adapt to that as well. And as you see in the entrance, the Women's Building, El Edificio de Mujeres, which has been also one of the kind of core of the building. It has to be just always bilingual and always trying to engage with and for the community.
That was Maria Arteaga and Kristen Acosta. Please join us for part 2 on the Women's Building next Tuesday. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Michelle Kilfeather does original photography for us. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 5th season, we have more than 200 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're able to, please rate and review the show. And drop us a line at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay strong, weird, and healthy. And we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.